Alright, you guys, let's go ahead and find your seats. If you're near an AC thing, is it just here it's a little warm? A little bit? If you're near an AC thing, can you drop it down? I get, every time I do that wrong. I think we just asked them for more water than ice, so that should be coming here in a second. Alright, I forgot to announce something tonight. So this generally ends at 8:30. At 8:45, we go to Chimes, which is right down the way. And so we're going to go to Chimes, and that's the meeting after the meeting, where basically we're going to be doing networking. So you're responsible for your own drinks or food, but we go there, and that's when the real networking gets started. So it's a fun time. So tonight, 8:45, Chimes, which is about 3 or 4 red lights down the way. And our table always grows, so we have fun. All right, guys. So I'm excited. We're gonna interview Justin here. I don't know, when did we meet?
I think it was like 2016.
2016, something like that. So we're gonna get started. Tonight's gonna be an interview style. And so if you've got questions, let's hold them toward the end, because I'm gonna kind of pull his story out of him with some questions, and then I'm gonna open it up, okay? And I know we've got the live stream going, and so we try to read if people have questions on the live stream too, but, all right, so Justin, talk to us about how did you get started in real estate?
How did I get started? That's a good question.
You guys hear him in the back? You guys good?
In 2015, I was working like as a caregiver for like 10 years, and helping people like assisted living, like Charles was talking about, and just wasn't. I liked what I was doing, but I wasn't going anywhere with it. We were getting paid like minimum wage. So a friend of mine had some rentals in New Orleans, and it kind of sparked my interest, or reignited my interest in real estate. And I went to walk some properties with her, and something just kind of triggered in my head, hey, let me look into this real estate investing thing, because I was looking to get out of the business I was in and start my own business anyway. So ended up, that just kind of going on YouTube, finding one of these guru guys and kind of diving in.
So you're finding these people online. What did you get? Did you get started in land right away?
No, I started in housing. I came across, I don't know if you mention names or not.
Sure, let's go ahead.
Came across like Ron LeGrand's house flipping creative course.
So if you guys haven't heard of Ron, who here has heard of Ron LeGrand? Ron LeGrand's an old school guru guy. So you came across him?
Came across him. I thought it was like super cool watching him like underwrite sub-2 deals. Like this is like, this is what I want to do. Like this is cool. So I bought the course. I ended up, I didn't have any, I completely like, my job had gotten rid of me, like, because there's a new company, like, they took over, and I lost all this seniority I had kind of at the position I had. So basically I didn't have a job at that point, and I just went like, I'm going to do this 100%. So I took all in and paid the $1,500. I ended up signing up for his VA thing, which was something I would not recommend, especially if you're starting out, because it was like $700 a month, and I didn't know what to do with the leads when they were coming in. You're just starting, so ended up signing up for that for a little bit. But I did get I got value out of his course.
So you buy a course. So this is very common. Some people learn for free through events like this or YouTube. But I paid for classes and stuff. But a lot of times their classes can be for, like, their stuff is good for certain levels. And if you jump too quick, all of a sudden your overhead's way too much early on. So you want to be mindful of that.
Exactly. That's what happened.
Okay, so did you do some deals during that time?
We did one deal, driving for dollars, in Slidell, came across a house. I think I ended up contracting it for like 10 or 12,000, and I ended up selling it to a friend of ours, the late Robert Reed, who passed away, and he had come into with me a little bit, a lot during that process.
A lot of you guys know Robert Reed, who used to come to these. He was 6'8", so he had a duck to walk in here.
Yeah, so I saw him speak at a...
He wore boots too, right?
Yeah, he did. He did. So he was speaking, so I approached him, and I just basically, hey, I got this deal. I don't know what to do with, and he's like, well, it's not going to work for this price, but see if you can renegotiate it down. We got to renegotiate it down like 8,000 or 9,000. It was for a house, but it was like pretty bad shape. Ended up buying it. I made like a few thousand, like $2,000 or $3,000.
So you wholesale it to
Yeah, wholesale it to.
So, okay, so did a house deal, made some money, maybe got the money back you had in for the education, maybe.
You maybe got a little bit of that in.
Okay, that's honest. So what attracted you to land? How did you get into that direction?
Well, we were marketing heavy for houses using direct mail marketing in Orleans Parish, and we were getting good responses with the houses. My problem was I wasn't any good at underwriting the repair estimations. Like I wasn't good with repair estimations. So
every house in New Orleans has a foundation product, just about.
Like I didn't know about fixing things up or not, but I was good with marketing. I was good with generating leads. So me and my ex we were riding and we were listening to a podcast, and this gentleman on the podcast. He was interviewing this guy talking about land, and I listened to the podcast, and this guy saying how he's been flipping land for 20 years or 15 years, and he sells it with financing, and it's so much easier than houses. So I was like, there's something here, and we just kind of like I re-listened to the podcast, and we re-listened to it a few times. We're like, we're going to do this, but we didn't have any money. So we ended up buying his course on eBay for like $300. His old course for like $300, which was kind of similar to the newer one, but there was some things in there that had changed. And we got started, hit the ground running, and started mailing just like they said. And we ended up getting our first deal for $500 for a vacant lot in Lee County, Florida.
So you bought the land for $500?
We actually wholesaled it. We contracted it for $500. We assigned it for like, I don't know. Ended up making like not much, $2,500 assignment fee.
But it's something. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a start.
It made you $300 back, and then some.
Yeah. And the guy who we assigned it to, he was like impressed that we had got it at that price. He was a big time investor down there, so he invited me to go down there, and I went down there for a few days and followed him around for 3 days looking at all of his properties, and we marketed for him for a while.
Okay.
Who's that?
That's in your old neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Maybe later you can tell them who that was.
Yeah.
But, okay, so you do this first land deal,
Uh-huh.
get it under contract for $500,
Yeah.
and then you assign it for what, $3,000, you make $2,500, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
And then, so tell me this, how'd you find that deal?
So we used direct mail marketing
So you mailed them a letter or something?
Mailed them a letter. We call it in the land industry. We call them like neutral letters. And
What's that?
There's like a neutral letter is basically like a letter where we say like, hey, my name is Justin. We're interested in purchasing your property. Give us a call if you'd like to sell us. It's more wordy than that, but essentially that's what it says. And we're opposed to like there's other like a blind offer would be like, hey, my name is Justin. We're interested in purchasing your property, and here's a contract. So, but we did neutral letters back then. So they would call us, and we had a call center. I think eventually we got set up at Pathfive. They'd go to the call center, and they would take the information, and then we would evaluate the deal and try to figure out what it was worth and make an offer based off what it was worth. Building in a market of error because we didn't know that area. We weren't experts in that part of the country.
So why Florida? So you live here in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Why Florida?
Well, Florida is just you got to think about like where do people want to buy? Where are they going to want to buy land? And we were thinking, okay. we were thinking, okay, like if I was looking to buy land, where would I want to be? And you know, I had taken my kids on a vacation to Fort Myers. You know, when my son was really young, and my daughter, and it was really beautiful. So that's what made me think about Lee County, because Fort Myers is in Lee County, and Cape Coral, and it was just like
So
really
desirable area.
Desirable area. And,
Better economically than.
Very it's entrepreneurial friendly, and they're. But I mean, that wasn't the reason. The reason was it was just desirable for potential buyer, and we were taught to do it virtually. That's how we were taught. So we started off kind of virtually doing it. And we never went and drove out and saw the properties. We would do it without just seeing them.
So that's a big deal for some of you guys, not being able to drive out. I know I struggle with that. I'm very, tactile, so if I can't go out and see it. So let's talk about, so you're sending out these letters, these neutral letters saying, hey, my name's Justin, I'm interested in buying your property, pretty much. They're calling in saying, yeah, I might want to sell. With land, what's different than houses? So let's just say I own some land, maybe in Florida, and I own your letters, I call you. What does due diligence look like on land to know if it's, well, let me say this, is there bad land? Like, is there land that you don't want?
We've sold, you could sell, people will buy anything if you make the terms good enough. Like, they will literally buy anything.
Well, you and I wholesale, so Justin and I have done, I don't know, 4 or 5 deals here? I don't know. I don't remember. I actually should have thought back to it. But I've done about two dozen land deals, but a few of them we wholesaled. And I remember we had one in Covington in Tammany Hills where I remember my offer was like at $9, and you all of a sudden got a contract at $2,013. I was like, how? This guy yelled at me, I don't know how you did it. I remember, but then we did another deal in Tammany Hills, and it was landlocked. So you got a house, it was back here, there was no way to access it from the street. And then what we did was the neighbor wanted to buy it, and we just wholesaled it to the neighbor. Not an investor, but the neighbor.
Yeah.
And we made, I think, we were able to get it at a great deal because it was landlocked.
Yeah. Like people consider it junk. A lot of people will look at that property and consider it junk, but the people who live right behind it will consider it an extension of their backyard. So literally like 20% of the time, your neighbors will be buyers, generally when it comes to making.
Because you that's what you did. You sent out letters.
We send out neighbor letters. Usually the first phase of our marketing before we put it online, but before we get it out on Facebook Marketplace or Zillow, we'll send letters to the neighbors. But not
So neighbors that are touching the property, or more than just that?
Well, we used to just send the neighbors that were touching the property, but now we'll send to like everybody on that road. Maybe we'll send 10, 15, 20 at the most. And like I just sent one out to a property we have contracted in Sligo. One of the neighbors called me, who lives right down the street. He said, well, "You got 2 lots, and I got 2 sons, and they live in New Orleans, and I'm going to talk to them about maybe buying this." And I threw a price out there, and he was cool with the price. So he's going to call me back, and maybe he'll get it. Maybe he won't. But probably about 20% of the time, 15-20% of the neighbors are about.
So that's something that's important, because a lot of times, with houses, every now and then a neighbor wants it. But with land, think about it, there's a lot of perceived value. My dad has bought the land around his house because he's always said that land is one of the best pieces of medicine against the headache of a neighbor. Right? Like some people, apparently my dad's one of them, need some distance from their neighbor. But so you never know, whatever the motivation, and use is a little bit different of a factor than return on investment, right? Like investors want to get it for a purpose, but use is very different. Like I want to use it to extend my backyard, or I want to use it so a builder can't build there, or XYZ.
Or to store like equipment. Like we got property in New Orleans we sell, and some people will use it to just store park their truck on, or store a container. So.
You never know what the use may be. So let's talk through, if you're looking at a piece of land, how how do you run comps on it?
We do it at a lot of different angles. So we try to like attack it from a bunch of different angles. So we'll look at like Zillow, your traditional Zillow, your Redfin, and if it's like out in the country or
So not the Zestimate, but like the sold.
no, never the Zestimate. But we'll look at like the sold comps, and then we'll look at what's active on the market. And typically we want to be the lowest price in the market if we can for that kind of asset class. But if it's like bigger acres, like out in the country, then we'll look at sites like Land Lodge or Lands of America and do get comps, like a price per acre kind of comp.
So Lands of America and Land Watch.
Land Watch is kind of a go-to.
Because if I remember right, I only know Land Watch. They just have land. It's like a website specifically for land for sale.
Yeah, they have like 3 or 4 other websites that they like. When you post on Land Watch, it kind of goes to 3 or 4 other sites. But it gets to the top of Google, but they changed ownership and prices are kind of crazy. But that's where we would look if we're pricing like 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 acres or more out in the country. But if it's in residential city, like if it's in Slidell or New Orleans, we're not looking at Land Watch. We're looking at Redfin, Zillow. We're looking at DGIS, the local assessor site. We're looking at if it's commercial, we'll look at LoopNet, things like that.
So these are some good points to it, because one of the biggest issues with land is land doesn't always move. There's not always a comparable property where you can say, hey, something similar has sold recently. Because sometimes land, how many of you guys have driven by a property and they had a for sale sign, either with an agent or for sale by owner, and it was faded? Next time, you should call those. Just saying. But the point is, and so I'll talk in a little bit about kind of some of the things I've been doing with land. But I did a deal with one in Mandeville where it had a faded for sale by owner sign. I actually had to skip trace the owner's phone number, right? Because we couldn't read the sign because it had been out there for so long. And so that's part of the problem, is the comps may not always be there. So he said something smart, is like he goes on Land Watch and he looks like, for example, this was in St. Tammany Parish, it was 2 acres. If the MLS doesn't have something, Zillow, Redfin, things like that, you're saying, hey, well, one of the things you'll do is you'll go see what's kind of for sale in the area, and the average per acre might be, $5,000 an acre, $25,000 an acre, whatever that number is.
Take a percentage. If it's for sale, yeah. Like you can assume it's not going to sell for that if it's been sitting on the market.
Yeah. So, but if it's okay, and so you take a percentage off of that, and you say, hey, I want to be lower, right? So those things that's interesting. So then, all right. So those are some of the ways you look at valuing. But is there anything that makes a land less valuable?
Well, yeah. Like there's a lot of things. Like obviously, if it's like wetlands, marshlands, things like that, it's tough to sell sometimes. But that doesn't mean that like you cannot sell it. There's people. I know a guy who he had bought a plot of water. It was like he didn't even know it was water until he drove to it was in Florida, and it was just like water. Yeah, and he's like, I'm just gonna put a sign out here and post it just to make my friends laugh. He put a for sale sign, and as he was driving back, somebody called him, and the guy said, how much you want for it? And I don't know, whatever it was, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it was. And he's like, can I ask you why you're buying this? And the guy's like, well, yeah, every time I bring my fishing boat over here, the neighbors call the sheriff or the Fish and Wildlife, and they come tell me to get out of here. So now when they come, I'm gonna give them I'm gonna show them the deed in one hand and the bill in another. So even wetlands will sell. You got people who go duck hunting. You got there's timber opportunities in some wetlands. So there's properties that's like it's wet for part of the year and it's not wet for the other part. People can use it for recreational. You got other issues you might run into, like eagles nests. You don't see too much in Louisiana, but in Florida, if an eagle makes a nest in a tree on your land, like that's a big deal. You need to know about that because your buyer cannot build on that property. They're like maybe maybe when it's not nesting season, but maybe not at all. So like tortoises, those are protected in some areas. Some birds in Florida,
And another thing is they do have some historical trees that you can't take down, and things along those lines. So wetlands is actually a really big deal down here. So I did a deal. This was the faded for sale by owner side. You guys hear me talking about a 2-acre property in Mandeville like once or twice before, and I was like, so we called this lady, and do you want to tell the story real quick? What she said?
What did she say?
Like, I'm leaving town. She was like, I'm leaving town. My ex-husband died. No, my husband died, and then my new husband died. I'm leaving town.
She killed them both.
We were originally talking to him though.
He was
Originally talking to the husband, and then I started talking to the
husband,
and then to the wife.
And so the wife was like, I'm leaving this godforsaken town, and I'm selling everything. So that land, when I looked, the comps were like 75, 85,000 for the 2 acres, and the days on market were all less than 10 days on market. And so she was wanting 15, and so I was like, done, right? Like I'm thinking those numbers. Up until that point, so let's say 1 or 2 dozen deals, I had wholesaled the land, right? But this one, I was like, I'll just take the cash and I'll put it on MLS because the day's on market. Well, I did this November of 2021, and the market was starting to shift. And so those like small days on market, I listed it. So let's just say ARV was 85. I think we listed it like 64 or 60, something like that, to where it was below ARV to sell, and dropped it all the way down to 34,000 6 months later, and it was not moving. One of it had a creek on the side, so the FEMA 2.0 rule did that, okay? So it did have a creek on one side of the 2 acres. The other thing we learned was there was a neighbor. That neighbor would go to any interested party and was like, these photos, it rained, and this was what happened to this property. Like it was like it had low areas. Well, so then, so long story short, I take it off the MLS. It doesn't sell. I had a private money lender on it. I end up paying them off. So I own it free and clear, but I'm out, $20,000 plus at this point. And I'm like, I gotta do something with this land. It's not cash flowing, right? Like my house is. And so then I put it on Facebook Marketplace that I will finance it. And so we'll talk about this more here in a second. But I knew I had a problem with the wetlands. So I used, we were talking about it at dinner. There is a resource called, it was MapRight at the time, but now they call themselves Land ID. It's an app. It's actually expensive, right? Like 25 or 50 bucks a month.
I think it is, yeah.
Something like that. What is it? Someone? Okay, it's like 20.
It's 400 a year.
Yeah, something like, it's like something like that.
That's right.
But like for an app like service, right? So, but what it is now it's not the gospel truth, but it actually. So I used it. They had like a 7-day free trial. My cheap butt was like, let me go look, and I looked, and that property was pretty wet, but I had already bought it. So I'm like sitting here, and I'm like, well, here I go. I took down the property. Am I going to be able to sell it? Because I was full disclosure on the MLS. I was like, I did not do a wetlands determination. I do not have a survey, right? Other than, kind of the GIS. I'm like, all right, well, let me discount it and see what I can do. So I've been on Facebook Marketplace. I offered it, but I ended up selling it on financing with full disclosure that it may have some wetlands. I just haven't done a determination. And then the neighbor reached out to me. And he was like, and he sent me the photos. And I said, well, hey, do you want to buy it? No. I said, I'll finance it to you. Well, no, all this stuff. I said, well, I'm disclosing to everyone, what I know. Also, if you continue, this is tortious interference. And so, a little stern reminder. But here's the thing is he kept saying, well, when it rained for 2 days straight, it had water. I'm like, bro, everywhere has water when it rains for 2 days straight. But the guy who bought it is a landman who works for a land clearing company. I sold it for $60,000, $4,000 down, 15 years at 8.5% interest. He's paying taxes and he's paying the insurance, the liability insurance. And I'm getting $551 a month. and I have 24,000 into it. So I got 4 of that already. So go ahead and take 20,000 and divide it by $551. Then you'll find out how long it'll take me to get my money back. But this is a deal that I did. So I did this deal back in June. I bought it in October, November of 2021. Had a failed land flip on it. And then I kind of sat around and sat on my butt for a little bit because I was like, I forgot about it. And every now and then, I'm like, man, I got to do something with that land. And so, but the reality is, so I do that deal, and I'm like, huh. So I sold it on a bond for deed. So the title is still in my name, but the guy's buying it, and he's happy with it. He knew, he talked to the neighbor, he knew exactly what was going on. He was fine with it. He's already put a culvert in it and cleared it away, and he's got his camper on it because he's going to build on it in the future, right? And so he wanted to use it. So my point of telling you that story is due diligence. So what type of due diligence do you do on land when you're looking at it? Do you do due diligence before you offer on it or after you offer on it?
So we do it before we offer. So if we're doing like a neutral type letter, then we'll, after they call in, we'll do our due diligence. And we're looking, like I said, we're looking at the prices, like the Redfin, the Zillow, the Land Watch. We're looking at the assessor's office, what it's assessed at. You kind of got to take that with a grain of salt, but some areas are like spot on, some areas are way off. And there's all sorts of exemptions with that, but we still like to know those numbers. If you're in an area like other parts of the country where topography is an issue, you got to take that into account. We don't really have that problem.
What's topography?
Like the
you wonder
like the mount, like you don't want to buy the side of a cliff or the side of a mountain. If it like drops down, not to say that those properties, there are some people that might buy them if you sell them for low enough, or you sell them for $100 a month with 0 down. Somebody might put one of those hanging Airbnbs. You know how they got like you've seen them on TikTok or something. They have like anyway.
You never know who the buyer might be.
You're not. Yeah. So.
But that would make it to where you would have less interested buyers, right?
Right. So we would be looking like topography. We'd be looking at wetlands. We would be looking at mainly what the price is. And, looking at back taxes, making sure that that's all.
So that's important.
Yeah.
So another thing here is zoning, right?
Yeah.
Because that's important. So one of the big things I learned was, what can you do with the property? So zoning is one of the things that tells you what you can do, but we also have what's called overlays. So for example, a mobile home overlay. So it might be zoned residential, but it may have an overlay that allows you to put a mobile home on. So stuff like that's important because if you can put a mobile home on it, now you have a lot more people who might be interested.
That really makes it more sellable. If for mobile home lots, like if you're in most of the areas, a lot of areas in the country, like if you get a lot the zoning will allow for a mobile home, those usually sell really quick. Some areas where there's like it's allowed everywhere, maybe not. That may not be the case, but generally it is.
Is there anything if you see it that you say no, I won't touch that property?
I mean, these days, but not in the beginning when we first started.
Hey, what did you learn the hard way to stay away from?
It's really, I think it's just dealing with like lower value properties. They're good. I kind of like looking back. I think it would be better use of our time to focus on larger properties.
So what do you mean lower value? You mean like land that's worth what, $10,000?
$10,000 and less. I mean, it's great. There's a low barrier of entry. So if you're getting in with financing, like we do sell with financing, so those work out good. That you can buy.
Well, so let's talk about those strategies. What strategies do you do?
We buy and we sell. We wholesale and we buy and sell in financing, like bond or deed or mortgage.
So a lot of you guys are familiar with wholesaling. He'll get it under contract. He'll go find a buyer who's willing to buy him out of that contract, and he makes a fee, so that assignment fee. You buy and resell, so that's like a hotel deal. You'll get it at a discount, you buy it, and then you go do what?
We'll resell it. It's just,
you go find a realtor.
Sometimes we've listed them before. We're going to be listed more in the future. because for the bigger deals, you know, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense not to for the bigger deals. The smaller deals, you know, a lot of agents are going to want to deal with, you know, $5,000 land deal. But for a $50,000 deal, yeah, why not? Because you're taking away your whole dispo side of the business. You know.
So that's important. So, so basically it's like a wholesale deal. You're getting it out at a lower price, and then you're just finding an agent that deals with land, that maybe even specializes in land, and they will list it for you, and then you make a profit, like it's flipping.
Yeah, or we may just buy it and sell it. We may even buy it, take title, and then market and sell it ourselves instead of selling the contract. We may, if it's just like a good deal, of, you know, yeah, for sell by over. But and then there's the financing, which
What does that look
like that's what really like doing that these days. Ever since COVID, we started kind of buying and selling the financing, and it just makes it really. It opens up your buyer pool. So like a huge, you know, and like
my deal that I couldn't sell, I've been sold.
Yeah, at 5X's or 10X's your buyer pool, there's a lot of people that could put a few $1,000s down, pay a few $100s a month, and but they just can't afford to pay $30,000 up front for the property plus closing. So if you make it where the barrier of entry is easy for people to get into, you open up the doors to a lot more buyers. But you have to be careful, because if you do it 0 down and $100 a month, there's going to be higher defaults. You're going to have to take those properties back. So in Louisiana, we have bond for deeds, which are useful because they're not. If a buyer does default, you know, we try to work with them, you know, but eventually we
still have the title.
We can cancel it. Whereas like if it's a mortgage, then that's more expensive, especially if you're in, you know, a judicial foreclosure state.
Like Louisiana is, but then you'll have to foreclose.
Then you have to foreclose, and that can get costly. So I would like say, you know, mortgages are great, especially on the higher value pieces. And the great thing about those are you can sell. There's people who will buy mortgages. And if you ever want to get out of your cash flow, which cash flow is great, if you ever need to cash out of it, you know, you can sell your mortgage or your bond for deed, but people will pay more for mortgages generally than bond for deeds.
Because that's a little bit more advanced selling. So let's talk through that. So wholesaling, that's like the quickest cash and the lowest risk. So the other one is you have to then acquire it. So you have to have the capital to take it down, either your own or someone else's, and then you sell it, maybe by yourself or with a realtor. So that's like flipping. There's more risk, because maybe how long does it, you know, take to sell? What's your cost of capital? You know, you have taxes and things like that, and other things. And so that's a little bit longer time to get your money back. And then the other one is you take it down and then you sell it with financing. Is there anything else you can do with land that, whether
you can subdivide it?
Okay.
We have one right now under contract that we may acquire. If the neighbor doesn't get it, we're going to subdivide it into 1 acre parcels and sell them on financing probably.
So
Or
it's 2 acres right now, just one parcel number.
Exactly, it's 2 acres under 1 parcel, and you know, we're getting it as part of a package. We're more interested in some of the other properties in the package, so this is one I'm just probably gonna subdivide and then sell each, because I think it's generally it will be worth more. You know, 2 1 acre parcels will be worth more than 1 2 acre parcel, because you can put 2 houses in there, you know, or something like that. So, and some people they can subdivide larger pieces, and that's where a lot of money is made in the businesses.
A lot of you guys know Leon Johnson, who have had him come here. Leon has a saying, and I don't know if it's his or someone else's, but it's one of his Leonisms. But it's buy it by the gallon, sell it by the shot, buy it by the acre, sell it by the lot. Get it? So you buy it in a clump and then you sell it off. And there's a skill to that. So knowing what can be subdivided, you know, there's usually a process you have to go through to get it subdivided. Some of them can be. I think I was dealing with one up near Jackson, and it was like 20. It was, I forget, it was like 100 acres, and there was a deed restriction that you couldn't have less than an 8 acre parcel. So you think, okay, it was something like that. I forget how many acres it was, but it was one of those things where it was literally built into the deed that there was a restriction that you couldn't subdivide it lower than, say a 5 or 8 acre tract. So you need to know those things. So there's a skill set there. There's development, stuff that you can do there. So let's also talk through. So again, anything that you would stay away from in land, or anything that you want to encourage advice and be careful with?
Yeah, I would be careful with HOAs if you're not familiar with homeowner associations. A lot of my fellow land people, they steer clear of those, although my daughter is doing pretty good with M1. So, you just need to know the rules. When you're dealing with HOA, that's a whole other layer of things you need to know when you're selling those properties or wholesaling them or financing them. You need to know what the HOA will allow or it won't. Like you said, deed restrictions, that's another thing. You need to, if there's deed restrictions, you need to know that, because even if you don't hold the property yourself, your buyer is going to need to know that, what they can do with it. And you don't want to tell them they can do something with it and then they find out they can't. So.
Well, I think that's important, because what you're talking to with your buyer, like the use of the land is something that's important. Like we talk about the mobile homes, like if you can fit a mobile home on it, man, then there's people who might be wanting to move a mobile home to that, right? But the reason that's important is, for example, that HOA fee, you want to know those costs. Maybe you want to get those covenant deeds and restrictions, like the bylaws, and share that. So you want to do that in your due diligence. So for example, I've seen deed restrictions where you have to build a certain size house. But those things are important, but the reality is, maybe this, I've seen it before where a seller's like, I just had one recently where a seller was like, the seller was grandfathered in for a use that you could no longer do. And it was one of those things where it's important. So that was, we would call planning and zoning, with the planning and development department, and talk with them. The reason why that's important is we were able to get a major price reduction, because he thought that when I bought it, I could keep operating it the way that he had it. But one of the main factors, it was 4 mobile home parts, 4 mobile home lots, and he had always operated them as the 4 lots. Well, 2 of them had the power turned off. One of them was with a trailer, so it was just a vacant trailer. The other one, the trailer he sold last year, and the lot didn't have power, because there wasn't a trailer there. Well, he was like, well, you can just fit a trailer here and run it out, and that one you get power turned back on and renovate it and run it out. Well, I go and I call, so I'm doing my due diligence, I call, and they say, no, when the power's been off for more than 1 year, you lose, basically, it was grandfathered. The old rule, when he set it all up, and he set it up right, with the permit department and all that, where he could do the 4, but because he had let the power lapse for over a year, his grandfathered in status and that old, those old code rules now reverted to the new one, which was basically in Tangipahoa Parish, you can't have a trailer, you can only have 1 trailer per 1/2 acre. And so it had 2 on the 1/2 acre, right? So they were saying that they wouldn't let us turn the power on because the power had been off for more than a year for each of them. So now what do? I go back to the seller and I said, hey, this 4-unit mobile home park is now a 2-unit. I don't even know if it feels right to call it a mobile home park, but you know what I mean? Like this 2-unit thing. And so what did I do? I got a major price reduction from that. So you see how your due diligence, for example, if I went and found it had these restrictions with the HOA that the owner didn't know about, or if it had, for example, the zoning was restricting some of the things I could do on it. Number one, it might change your mind about the land, but it also might limit your ability of what you're going to do. But you can also negotiate with it. So what are some things that you want to encourage people to do? For example, maybe it's some resources, or hey, this was actually a really profitable thing for me. Make sure you keep this in mind.
Yeah, I would say, just remember, that you're not the market. Just because you wouldn't buy the property, or you wouldn't
Like the piece of, like
the
the little
land,
pond.
like the pond, just because it may look like junk, or may look like a not desirable piece of land. You're not the market. There are people that may want that property for some reason.
Like,
So
have you true or false, have you sold land in New Orleans East?
I've sold, yeah, some of my best deals have been in New Orleans East. And we've
Like
done,
on which exit?
uh,
One that you wouldn't turn around on.
Almanac, we've done it on Almanac, we've done on the Old Utility Road, areas that, I'm not gonna, like, it's
But
a
what are
challenge
some of your
area.
buyers?
My buyers are people that own salvage yards, people that they want to store equipment maybe. So there's a place for those, there's buyers, a lot of buyers would love to buy land in New Orleans East, on Old Utility or Almanac or wherever, that will allow for you to put junk cars, or maybe one of my buyers, he cleared the property, he fixed it in, he put cameras on it, and he was using it for his trucking business. It was like a commercial industrial, and that particular one we ended up selling the note, not the note, but the property on that one. But so I mean, just because it's maybe what you may consider a challenged area, does not
That's a delicate way
mean
to put
it's yeah. I mean, look, we've done a lot of stuff in the Lower Ninth Ward. We've done a lot of stuff we've done in the East. And the Lower Ninth is good because I feel like, even though it's we're not making huge profits there because the properties we get are pretty low in value, but I think that's just going to turn around, and I feel like we're doing a good thing, like we're helping the community. So I feel kind of good about when we sell something over there. But yeah, I mean, are there dangerous areas? Yeah. I mean, but some of your buyers, maybe they grew up there. Maybe they came from an area that was more dangerous than that. You got people, there's a lot of people that are, coming from other places, maybe come from South America, from Venezuela, and we think New Orleans has a crime problem, but there's a lot of places in other parts of the world that have much worse crime problem than New Orleans. So to some people, that's
They're not fazed by it.
they're not faced by it. So you're not the market, and
What else would you say?
I would say, just do your due diligence, try to price them right, try to, if you need to talk to some agents, talk to agents, just there's a lot of education out there available, so there's endless hours of education that's free on the internet that you can listen to, podcasts.
So, if someone was getting started in doing something with land, whether wholesaling it, flipping it, buying and selling, financing it, or any of the multiple ways you can make money with land, because you've been doing this now for years, it's what you do full time. So what does your business look like today?
My business, we've pivoted to more seller financing, so we're working on building our portfolio with seller financing notes. We went to cash flow.
So that's stuff that you're buying at a cheap price, and then you're financing it to the buyer.
Exactly. We don't pay market price. Obviously, we're investors, so it wouldn't make sense for me to pay market. But we do get we try to get a discount, but we try to make it a win-win for everybody. A lot of times in land, there's less of an emotional attachment. Sometimes people just maybe they just don't want it, or they don't want to pay taxes, or they're tired of paying the HOAs, or whatever the reason is. Just done with it. So that people are willing to you're able to get deals. You just gotta look for them. You gotta do your marketing and stuff like that. But just education on it.
So you're pivoting to doing more seller. You
Seller
buy
finance,
them.
yeah,
sell finance.
We're focused more on seller financing opportunities right now, but actually, what we're targeting in the future is to do larger deals, bigger, recreational pieces out in the country. You could say, away from the big city. So we're probably gonna target
So larger
parcels, things that we're gonna try to take down and list with an agent, so that we can cut out all the energy that it takes for sale by owner. So that's kind of where we're probably going to go in the future with it. But still, in the seller financing deals, if I get a property that I could sell for for $25,000, for $5,000, I would do that all day long and sell it on financing. that'd be great. Yeah.
So, okay, so talk about what your team looks like right now. As we're gonna do some questions here in a second. What does your team look like right now?
So it's just myself and my 21-year-old daughter, who's been
Give her a shout out.
my daughter Emmy. Emmy's with. I'm sure she'll catch the recap. She's actually in Costa Rica right now for her birthday, but
You guys love traveling. So this 21-year-old daughter is in Costa Rica right now.
she gets in her video. So
I can't find Justin because he's in Thailand or where did he go last?
Peru.
Peru, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like you could for a lot of people, it'd probably be smart to just take all your money and put it back into business. And I know like you can grow your business much quicker that way. But for me, it's like I like experiences. I like to travel. I like to take my kids traveling. Like I brought my son on a trip to New York recently, which was cool. So it's I like to spend my money that way. But
Talk
probably
about
not-
to your daughter. When did she get involved?
She's been helping me since I was in the business, since she was in junior high school. And she was at the table handwriting yellow letters for houses. You know, when she was in junior high school. So she was driving for dollars with me, her and her friends. She was there when we found that first deal. So she's been walking vacant. She was walking vacant houses with me in 2016, and when she graduated high school, I brought her on as a full-time employee. Since then, several years later, she started her own land business, and she's done. I think she's about to do her 15th land wholesale deal assignment deal right now.
Hope you guys heard that. 21-year-old daughter
Yeah.
hung around the family business. Now, instead of being just like an employee, she's now got her own company at 21 and is doing her 15th land deal.
Yeah.
And she wholesales.
She wholesales
And she's in Costa Rica.
And she's in Costa Rica.
yeah.
I'm trying.
So she's worked, and she just got a verbal confirmation today.
Hold on, right here.
Probably for the guy said he's signing, and if he said he's going to put it in the mailbox today, and this will most likely be her biggest deal. Knock on wood, but it's probably going to be like $30,000 to $40,000 deal.
For a 21-year-old getting a $30,000 to $40,000 signing fee. Does she want to go to college?
We'll probably buy that one and resell it. I'm going to act as a private money lender, but we may assign it. Like, if we had to, we could assign it. But I'll probably be her lender on that one. Just because there's a lot of people involved there.
Yeah. But that's an awesome story. So, but anything as far as your business that you want to point out? I think it's great. I love that Emmy works with you.
I mean, and the rest of my team is like basically just title companies, are like an instrumental part of the team.
You do a lot of virtual stuff.
We do a lot of virtual stuff. So title companies can make or break a deal. If you get with the wrong ones, they can kill a deal. So we take care of our title companies. We pay in bonuses and things like that. Attorneys.
So you pay your title company?
Yeah.
The one title attorney just left. You would have been like, what? We get bonuses, like tips?
My closer, yeah, I get tips from my closer, the escrow, the closers and title companies. I send them gifts sometimes because they get stuff. When you take care of them, they take care of you. They move things along quick. Because time will kill a deal, and if you take too long, and it's a hot deal, and word gets out, it's a hot deal, and you don't own that property. If you're a wholesaler, then you gotta execute quick. You need to close it quick.
Yeah.
If you have to cash, it's better to just buy it, resell it. But if it's a low value deal, you got to look at the closing costs and all that stuff. But title companies, attorneys, my daughter we couldn't do it without her because she does all the stuff I can't do with the marketing aspect, Excel, Microsoft Word, scrubbing lists, and doing the data stuff. I couldn't do it without her, and so we work as a team now. She's no longer an employee. She helps me and I help her, and that's kind of how we work it now. So.
All right, so last few questions and we'll open up for questions. Do you ever spend money on things like surveys or the wetlands determination or, other things to kind of do further due diligence on the property?
I do. Like, the properties that I own, like I have one in Florida, that I haven't done anything with. I was gonna do an RV campsite there, but, I'm not a developer. So, but no, I have done surveys on like that one. You know, well, we would probably do things like maybe, you know, a little bit of maybe clearing, get, you know, underbrush cleared on some properties, maybe if it made sense. When you're getting into the bigger stuff, we'll probably be doing more of that, like, you know, maybe clear, maybe there's an easement that's overgrown, we would probably clear that if it made sense. We'd have somebody go and clear it so people could drive up in there. So depends on the value of the property and the price point, but we'll be doing more of that as we move into the larger stuff than on the lower end stuff. We generally don't do surveys unless it's something very valuable, something I plan on hopefully long term.
Excellent. So my last question for you, and then we'll open up the questions. If someone is wanting to get started and do their first land deal, can you speak to someone, whether they're an experienced investor, maybe in houses, or they are, you know, just looking to do a first deal at all? What would you suggest for someone?
If it's your first deal and you don't have like a background in a different industry, like if you come from another industry, you ran your own business, you already have the kind of grid, you know how it works. You could hit the ground running pretty quick. But if you're like kind of green or new to it, then I would say you know, just keep in mind everything is learnable. Every skill is learnable. It's a process. There's like 4 stages of learning, and you got to go through all those stages before you become really good at what you want to become good at. So just, you know, you're going to get super excited at first, and then you're going to get like, you know, you hit your first roadblock, and then you're going to want to quit, and then you're going to go and get a few deals, and you're kind of confident, but not really. And then eventually you're going to get to like an expert kind of level, but that takes time, you know. Like they say, like 10,000 hours or something, become an expert. It's a theory somebody made up. It's probably somewhat accurate.
Yeah.
So you got to go through the cycle. It's like a roller coaster. There's ups and downs. You just stick with it. Keep the mail going out, or your text messages going out, whatever, cold calls, whatever, however you generate leads. That's the key to the business. Is it, you know?
Because you send out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we used to send out more when we were doing more neutral letters, but you know, now we send out less, but we're doing like more like targeted and blind offers. But the mail is like, there's a direct correlation from mail to leads. You stop sending the mail, the leads are going to stop coming in, and you're not going to post deals. So you got to keep the mail over your text messages.
Do you still have your mail printer thing?
Yeah, we have a.
You're the only person I know that has this.
Yeah, so we have a bulk mail permit with the post office, so we can mail it for cheap, because I don't know why we did this, because you could probably should outsource this, honestly. There's a lot of companies now, it's gotten cheaper over the years. So you can outsource your mailings to companies. But we do have a bulk mail permit, and we have like a commercial grade envelope printer that it'll spit out, you know, about 30,000 postcards in an hour, so fast that you.
Wait, say that part again?
It'll spit out 30,000 postcards in an hour, but you have to have the conveyor belt and fan attachment, so because it'll spit out so quickly, ink won't dry. And this is with fast drying ink, so I'm not sure we use it for envelopes. We don't do postcards. I know people who do, and they work. Just all this stuff works, but yeah, it'll spit out.
He's the only person I know that owns this.
Yeah, we do a hand. Yeah, it just prints them out, and you know, we pay somebody to fold stuff and stamp. It's 10 cents, like 10 cents a letter, 11 cents a letter. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
All right, guys. Any questions for Justin?
Justin, you just said you're paying 11 cents a letter on postage.
No.
No.
just to seal stuff and stamp it on.
So think about it, they have a long letter.
Yeah.
I thought you said postage.
No. We
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Well, with our permit, I think it was like 10 cents for the stamp, and then you pay, I think 20 cents at the counter. So I think it's like 30 cents. I think we're all laying on 45 cents a letter or something. It really should be outsourced. If you're getting started, I would just say outsource it. You know, the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. So no, we're probably about 45 cents. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's sending.
Yeah.
But he's also sending volume.
Yeah. So I mean, if you get the bulk mail permit, you can do it cheaper. goes to one of these mail houses and you buy like a big chunk, like 100,000 mailers or 50,000 mailers, you don't have to send them all at once, but you just pay for it. Then you can get in at a lower price now. So that's probably what I would recommend if somebody started this, like go to one of the companies. But I mean, it does have its advantages to mail in-house, you know, gives you more flexibility and lower costs out the door regardless of what you're buying.
Diana?
So when you're underwriting your deals and you're trying to figure out what price you want to buy it for, do you have a specific percentage that you, like, if you know it's gonna sell for 100,000, do you go in at half, or like how do you?
Kind of like for houses, it's 70 cents of the ARV minus repairs type of thing. So you're asking like, what's the formula for buying land?
Yeah, like how does he decide the number that his max allowable offer?
That's a good question. And it really depends on the actual property. Like, it depends on the value of it. So if it's like a $10,000 piece of land in, the city somewhere, or $5,000, if the land is gonna sell for $10,000 retail, we may only offer, 30 cents on the dollar. But if it's gonna sell for 100,000, then yeah, we may offer, 40 to 60 cents on the dollar. So the more valuable the land is, the more we would offer. I mean, we may go up from there. If we see there's a margin, we're looking, if we see, hey, we can make, if we know we can sell, if it's worth 100 and we know we can sell it quickly to 90, I mean, we could go as far as 80, it's like 10,000 on it if we wanted to. But on the bigger stuff, you would probably offer more. You're gonna need to offer more because you're dealing with bigger, more valuable properties, and it's just going to take more. It's going to take more mail to get those under contract, and it's going to take more offers. And you're not going to get probably 25 cents on the dollar on a $100,000 property. You might could 10 years ago, but not these days. I mean, I'm sure there are some deals out there, but most of the low-hanging fruit is already probably in bids in those markets.
Yeah, this is about the landlord business. When you buy the landlord, how are you gonna sell it to this area? Because you also maybe don't want your neighbor. What about if your neighbor keep determine the price for you? How you buy the price from the landlord practitioner? How you gonna sell it?
The neighbor.
And what's the other exit strategy for you?
So for landlocked land, you're talking about like how do you like what do you offer for that, and then how do you sell that?
So you definitely want to factor that into your offer. Obviously, it's landlocked, so it's worth less than if it wasn't. Like if it didn't have, So you want to find out like, is it truly landlocked? Like, because a lot of properties, people will say landlocked, but there's like a platted road that just had never been built.
Like your American Street one, right?
Yeah.
Was that one?
Yeah, that was like one. There's like a lot in Covington and Mandeville. So if it's a truly landlocked, it means there's no easement. So if you look at the full legal description on the deed, there's no easement written in there. Then, and your neighbors like say they don't want it, then your only other option is to just, it depends on. You could market it. You could take it through court. You could have the judge, if you want to pay the money, you have a right to get an easement. You'll have to pay full market value for that cost of the easement. But I mean, the court will probably, if you push hard enough, they're going to let you put an easement in there. It may or may not be worth doing it. If it's like a $1 million property, it probably would make a lot of sense to do that.
I've got a friend in Texas, my friend Logan. He does a lot of this in Texas, where he will buy landlocked land at pennies on the dollar, and he will. The first time I met Logan, I thought he was an attorney, and then he surprised me he wasn't, because of how much he knew about the Texas law for land and easements and how to go about it. Half of his business is just solving that title issue. So if you want to get into land, especially land with problems, you want to learn what is an easement like. So I know you're in Mississippi, so know that Mississippi and Louisiana may have separate laws, like the same way that Texas may have different laws for easements and right-of-ways, and, you know, can something be truly landlocked in the state of Louisiana? That's important to research before you buy it, because you want to know what's the probability of you winning and how much is the legal cost going to cost for you to get to that win.
Is it wise to, like, give estimate to the broker? Because I know one broker in Mississippi,
So like a real estate broker?
so is that wise to buy it? So that
So the majority of his deals are off market. He's buying them direct to seller. Now you can go and talk to the broker, maybe they can help you understand values and things like that. But going to them, but would it be wise to go to them? Potentially, it depends. Is land their specialty? You know, are they familiar with that area? You know, maybe they can speak to what they could sell it for. But more than that, I would want to speak to an attorney and see like what would, you know, and not just any attorney. So like a title attorney who doesn't practice maybe litigation for easements and right-of-ways. I would look for the attorney that represents the developers, and that's who I would use. That answer your question? Any other question, John?
So I have a multi-part question. So when it comes to the deals that you owner finance, number one, do you vet your buyers in any way, form, or fashion?
Okay, let's answer that.
Good question.
So do you vet your
Most of the time, no.
Okay.
No, I don't.
So it's like
I
the
don't even
first
run
person
credit.
with money?
Like if you meet the criteria, you got the down payment. I'm not looking at your credit. Now with houses, I have a few rental houses. I will be vetting for buyers in the future. I got one that's problematic.
Well, that's
but-
for the house deal,
but-
that's problematic.
Yeah, but for land, no, I don't vet them. It's just you got the money, then you're in the deal. If you want it.
So,
But it's land. But is there some risk to that?
Yeah.
So what's the risk of not vetting an owner finance buyer quickly?
I mean, you could lose, they could default, you know. But
Yeah.
again, I mean, that's when you need to think about that going in, like, because you know.
Do you have to foreclose on them, cancel that bond for deed, and what are those costs?
Yeah, if you're gonna do like, yeah, for like the cancel of offer deed, it might only cost you a few $100s. But to do a foreclosure, it may cost you a few $1,000s. And so, I mean, you need to look at that going in and determine, okay, if you're gonna do a mortgage, you need to get a sizable down payment. Because like the more down, the less likely they will be to default. So if it's like $100,000 property and they put $20,000 down, it's very unlikely they're gonna default. If they do, I mean, you don't want them to, but if they do, you can take the property back and, you know, that's just, you know, it's how it is. But
What was your second part?
yeah, so the second part of
Because
that.
we're almost done here, folks.
And then I got one more question after
Okay.
that. So the second part of that, along the same lines, what rate do you usually charge? Or, I mean, do you have a standard, or is it partially based on the vibes you get on the phone with the, you know, so what rate do you
I'm
charge?
very impulsive when I make decisions. We went anywhere from 0% to 15%, but I don't put prepayment penalties in. So the way I look at it is, yeah, I'm going to charge probably a relatively high interest rate. It might be 12%, it might be more than that, but there's no prepayment penalty, so you can literally pay me off anytime, and you can save all that interest. So I don't feel bad about that because they can pay it off. But usually it's like around 12% is what I'm charging these days, which I don't think is that bad because I mean that's what are the banks at right now? Like 8%. So
Well,
I
but
mean,
land generally runs at a higher, so go to bankrate.com, you can see what land goes for. It generally trends a little bit higher than houses. So that's what I use. The other thing is each state has a usury law. So look up usury law, which is basically, there's some limits on what you can charge for interest on a deal. So just FYI with that. And your final
Yeah,
question?
third part of that is once you've created that note, once you've created that paper, for the ones that you decide to sell, where and how do you go about selling those?
Oh, that's a cool question. I've only done that a couple times, like put one of my notes out on the market, and it was really interesting. I just put it out on Facebook Marketplace. I put it on Craigslist.
In these rooms
And
too.
in these rooms, like in REIAs, like Courtney's REIA and Steve, the West Bank REIA, great places to drop them in because there's always people that are looking to buy cash flows, like even people that are not real estate related. The last gentleman who bought our property ones, this guy buys anything with cash flows. He buys lottery wins. He buys like.
You can, okay.
He buys he buys
like
real estate cash flows. He buys if you win the lottery, he'll buy your, you know how you get the
Annuities.
payment. I
I
mean,
didn't
very
even do
wealthy,
that.
very wealthy people. You know, this like the people. You know, he's got like a college building named after. I'm not going to name his name, but
Oh,
very
very
wealthy.
interesting.
It's interesting because it's like the flip side of the business, and it's like you get wholesalers for notes, and like I had wholesalers contacting me, and it was like it's like looking in a mirror. It's like because it's like it's like reverse.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
So what he's talking about is he tees up someone. For example, my person that I sold for $60,000, $4,000 up front, and for 15 years I'm getting these payments. Well, sure, I'm getting $550 a month, but maybe I want the rest of my money. Well, there's a level that I could sell those future payments to someone. You can either sell it at what's called par at a discount. If you want to learn more about that, that's a little bit more advanced. If you go to Courtney10K.com, to the top right link, that's the YouTube channel for the REIA. Jack Sternberg came and talked about this, and he talked about, look in there, it's, I think it was earlier this year, but it was about note buying and selling. It's a little bit more advanced, but know this, that's a really great question. Is there anything else you want to say to that before I kind of wrap things up here?
Yeah, because even though I don't run credit, if you do sell that note, your note buyer they would like to see a good credit score. So if you really,
If that's your strategy,
If
you
that's
want
your
to know
strategy.
what they're going to look for.
yeah, you may want to run credit, and you may want to do a mortgage, a credit sale instead of a bond for deed, because your note buyer will pay more for those. They will pay less if you don't have credit scores. You know, and get it set up with a servicing company. They'd like to see it set up. All of our loans are set up with servicing companies.
So like an escrow services, stuff like that.
And that's built into the buyer's payment, so it's not much.
It's like 25.
$20 a month.
Is the deed going into the note owner's name then?
With the bond for deed, it's with the bond for deed, the actual title, stays with us, but they record like a memorandum of the bond for deed, just so it's on record, in case like somebody tries to
It's like
file a lawsuit against me, like they'll know that somebody's got interest in that property. So they'll record. There's some people that may write them up on their own, but we use an attorney to do the bond for deed. So there's a memorandum recorded. So I don't know how all that works. I just hand it to the title company and just say, this is what we want. Here's the terms.
Well, good stuff, guys. The reason why I wanted to bring Justin to talk is I know we have been struggling with high interest rates, high insurance rates, next thing coming down the pipeline's taxes, and then capital expenditures. Insurance forcing us to replace roofs, ACs going out because it's record heat, all of these things. And so what I'm seeing across the board is that people are struggling with cash flow, right? That monthly cash flow, that cash in the bank. And so one of the things that I've done is I started this, basically did that one deal, and I said, you know what, I think my business needs an arm that does stuff like this, where I am negotiating away from myself the repairs, the no roofs, no ACs, things like that, but the taxes and the insurance, that the buyer is responsible for that, and that I'm getting in cash flow that's not dependent on, cash flow that might have to go toward a air conditioning. Does that make sense? The reason why, because look, at the end of the day, sticking around in this game, especially in a changing market, so whatever this market's going to look like, a changing one at that, high interest rates, high insurance rates, all these things, it's the cash flow coming in that'll help you sustain and survive during challenging times. So one of the things I've personally done is started doing more of these types of deals where I'm buying land, either just land or land with trailers, and then I'm buying them and selling them on financing. It's not an appreciating game for me, right? Like this is not where I'm like, oh, my net worth is really going to grow. this is purely a cash flow game for me, because if I'm selling it, each month they owe me less, right? Like, that's eventually gonna either get paid off or, run out, right? The reason why that's really important though is, that's something that I've been doing because I've got properties that used to cash flow at a certain amount. They either cash flow less, cash flow neutral, or at worst, cash flow negative because of higher insurance rates or rent's not as high as it used to be or whatever. So this is something that I've actually started doing. I'm under contract to buy some more, and I'm looking at some more this week to buy because my goal is to have these kind of basically take some for the team while we're going through these difficult times. So whatever you're doing, I just want to encourage you is Justin, a lot of you guys know Justin as the land guy. He has been faithfully coming for these for probably since the beginning, since 2018. And so he's been one of the few most consistent people here over all those years. And so I want to encourage you, if this is something that's interested, like he said, you want to start with education, get educated with yourself. But Justin, how can people get in touch with you if, do you want social media? What's the best way? Phone number, email, whatever you feel comfortable with.
You can
Social
call,
security number?
text. You can call, text, or email me. My number, and I have a few business cards, but my number is 985-640-9212. That's 985-640-9212. Or you can email me at justin@bearshlandinvestments.com and Bearshland State. Or just hit me up on Facebook. I'm in Courtney's group. So, you can.
He's here at most meetings?
Yeah, I'm here at most meetings. So, yeah, just
Are you
call me,
going
text me.
tonight? Are you going to be joining us at Chimes? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I was going to
A lot of times he'll go to Chimes afterwards, so we're going to head to Chimes here next. You're obviously you're not obligated to come with us, but if you want to continue networking, a group of us are going to head to Chimes to go get food and drinks. Real quick, guys, next month, October 10th, back in this room, I'll be interviewing Chris Root about mobile home parks. But let's give it for Justin. He did a great job. 3 books in the back. If you're interested, 3 books in the back. At this point, you can walk away with 12. I'm not going to say anything. Thank you, guys.